Hi, welcome. My name is Charlotte. I love colorful and sparkly makeup, and today I'm going to be choosing makeup for my May and June Shop My Stash. Two relevant updates since my last Shop My Stash video. One is that I have moved, so my makeup is currently kind of all over the place, but I figured this was really the perfect time to do a Shop My Stash because it means that I can organize a manageable selection of makeup to be using while the apartment is sort of in disarray and everything else is being unpacked. Also, since my last Shop My Stash, my no-buy ended and I have picked up some new makeup, so you will see those new goodies in this selection. I'll mention those as I go through. But yeah, I'm excited to get at least some of my makeup organized. This is the first time I'm filming in this new apartment. As always, I'm still troubleshooting my setup, and that's especially true right now as I'm filming for the first time in this new space. So apologies in advance if anything goes wrong that I couldn't fix in editing. This is the stuff that I had pulled for my last Shop My Stash. I did have to go through and re-put it all together in these baskets because it had been, all dismantled when I packed up my makeup. Yeah, I'm gonna start by giving you some updates on some of these products. And obviously when I was packing and then moving and then starting to unpack, I have been wearing makeup a little bit less often, and I've sometimes been using just makeup out of a travel bag or whatever. So there's certain things in here that haven't gotten a ton of use, but other things have gotten lots and lots of use. Let's just get into it. So starting with primers and stuff, I was supposed to be using Inglot Duraline as a face primer and under eye primer. That's what I had intended to use this for. I don't think I even used this once this rotation, but in theory I still want to try it. The other primer I pulled out was this e.l.f. Liquid Poreless Putty Primer, which I did use a bunch of times. I'm gonna go to the spreadsheet I have. I used this 14 times during the last rotation and have been really loving it, so yeah, we'll definitely continue to reach for that. I'm gonna finish going through these little bins and then I will come back to talk about complexion makeup that I pulled last time. So let's move on to highlighter. I pulled the Physicians Formula Butter Highlighter in the shade Pearl, and I used this 7 times, so not a ton for 2 months. And the strobe cream, I did kind of forget that I had this in my Shop My Stash. This is the MAC strobe cream, just a deluxe sample size in the shade Pink Light. I mentioned that I wanted to be reaching for this more often because I was kind of falling into the trap of saving it. And I did kind of forget about it. So I only reached for this 6 times, which I want to be better about that in the future for that particular product because I really like that. For bronzers, I had pulled out this one from Romand in the shade Walnut Grain. And as I mentioned last time, this was in my deck of panning for the last few months. I did end up meeting my goal on that, which was just 30 uses. But you can see this is not showing a lot of visible progress at all, even after those 30 uses. My numbers for this are kind of confusing because I was tracking it for my deck of panning rather than tracking it for my Shop My Stash, but I have used this a bunch in the last 2 months. I had also pulled in my Phytosurgeons bronzer in the shade Rosy Daybreak, and quick little update on this. I had asked in my last video if people had advice about the sort of hard pan that had formed on this over the last few months. Somebody had commented that, yeah, they thought it was just hard pan from oils on my brush. So I did end up scraping the whole top off, and it has been performing really well ever since. It's a very, very sheer layer of product that you get with this, which is part of why I love it so much. So it was a little hard for me to tell whether it was picking up onto my brush or not, but I think after I scraped it, it was noticeably easier to use. I've been using this a ton. Let me see what my numbers are. So for this rotation, I've reached for this 23 times, and that is even though I brought in a couple of new bronzers into my collection, and they're still exciting to me, don't get me wrong, I'm not bored of those bronzers or anything, but even since adding those to my collection, I've still been just loving reaching for this. Ever since I got that hard pan off, I really, really love this bronzer. For blush, I had pulled out this e.l.f. Cream Blush palette. Again, please ignore this shade. It's just a dried out failed Franken. But I still have these 3 original shades in the palette. And I used this a few times, especially when I was like packing the apartment and I didn't really have time to wear makeup, but I just wanted to take a little break and put on some makeup. This was really nice for those like very, very light looks. Because these are incredibly sheer, very emollient, not long lasting at all. So the ones I was really trying to pull for were the peachy colors. So this peachy pink and this peachy orange. I reached for this shade twice and each of these shades once. It's not a ton for 2 months, but it's more than I have been using this palette recently, so I was glad to have it in the rotation. I also pulled out Milani Luminoso, and this one I used 5 times, which was pretty good because I really hadn't been reaching for this at all. And then this ColourPop Super Shock in between the sheets. Unfortunately, I don't think I reached for this. Let me see. Oh no, that's not true. So I used this 4 times during this rotation. But it definitely sort of fell from the front of my mind, unfortunately. Another fail is this Rare Beauty blush sample. I didn't end up opening this because, as I mentioned last time, like when I open these, I do just feel like the clock starts ticking on using them up. And I didn't want to do that before I moved because I knew that I wouldn't bring it with me. So I definitely want to keep this in for my next rotation and use it during those 2 months. And I have heard people say that these dry out like before you finish the sample, which is fine. Honestly, I just am ready to get this little thing out of my collection. I'm not a huge blush person, and I don't think that I will ever buy the full size of this. I'm just not really that interested in this product, but it'll be nice to try this shade just for curiosity's sake. Okay, I had a ton of lip products in this rotation, and I'm sort of like trying to get a handle on my lip collection. I have to say I don't really own many, if any, lip products that I'm just like in love with, or that I feel super confident or comfortable wearing, or that I feel like suit me really well. At this point, I think I might need to be like weeding out those shades that I end up kind of avoiding. And I think a Shop My Stash is a good way to do that. I don't track my lip usage just because I tend to reapply, and I might like reapply with something different from what I put on initially. So it's just too confusing for me to try and track that. I pulled in this shade Dancer from the Maybelline Super Stay line. I love this shade. I did wear this, I want to say maybe just once, but that was just sort of my goal for this, was to just wear it once, because I don't wear bold lip colors that often. Nectar, I'm torn on this shade because I think it's a really pretty shade. But it's one of those shades that like I'll put it on and I will think that it's gonna go with the look, but I just won't like how it looks on my lips. And I will often end up just wiping it off and putting something else on, and I don't wanna have those kinds of lip products in my collection. This is on the chopping block, but I'm not ready to get rid of it just yet. For my NYX Soft Matte Lip Creams, I really love the shade Los Angeles. Got some use on that. These 2 pink shades, Toulouse and Rome, I did not wear. I definitely didn't wear Toulouse even once. And I don't think I wore Rome. Maybe I wore it a couple of times. I want to keep Rome because I used to love it a lot and I don't want to give up on it yet. Toulouse is like, I guess the value it serves here is that it's a color that I might end up coveting in some other formula, and then this will convince me not to buy it. But it's like a mid-toned, it's very pink, and it's not it's not exactly my shade. I'll just say that. So this is kind of on the chopping block too. One that I think I am ready to just go ahead and get rid of is this shade Cheery. This is the Hydrating Core Lip Shine from e.l.f. And I think there's just too much white pigment in this. It really looks unflattering on my lips. It like gets streaky, clings to texture, and the color is nice in theory, but I think it's just a little bit too light for how bold it is, if that makes any sense. It's just not grounded enough. And I think I am just gonna go ahead and declutter this. I'm gonna try to find somebody who would like it. This lip gloss I'm trying to pan. It's in my deck of panning right now. I really like it. I use it a ton, still using it a ton. And then Adobe from Kaleidos is a pretty good My Lips But Better for me. And yeah, I got some use on it, and I kind of always get use on this, so it's not that impressive. Okay, so now the time has come. I'm going to go through each category again and pick some new items for this new rotation. For primers, I do think I'm going to keep this out and try and use it on my under eyes just, you know, for science. I also think I'm ready to move on to this e.l.f. Power Grip Primer. I don't know this product very well, and I want to get to know it a little better. I mentioned that I was gonna go back and talk about complexion makeup. I forgot, but that's okay. It's super quick. Basically, I ended up pulling these out for my Shop My Stash last time, and I've been using these non-stop. I really love the combination of these. What I do is I use this under my eyes, and then I take a second, well, I use just a tiny bit of this under my eyes, and then I take a full pump of it, kind of spread that across my cheeks, and then I add a few dabs of this before blending everything together. And I've really been loving that combination. It boosts the coverage of this ColourPop tinted moisturizer. It sort of deepens the shade of this bright concealer a little bit, and also just sort of like smooths out the texture, because I do find this to be a little bit too cakey when I wear it on its own. But this concealer, it is self-setting, and I've been noticing and appreciating that more and more the more I get lines under my eyes. I've been really having a problem with this and this creasing under my eyes, even though I don't like intentionally bring these kinds of things under my eyes. They just end up there, especially like the sort of outer under eye area, if that makes sense. So when I mix this and this as my like all over complexion product, it stops this from creasing in that area. And I really, really have been enjoying that. I don't even need to powder it most of the time. I've had no trouble reaching for these, and I'm kind of just like informally on my own time trying to finish each of these in the near future. So that has been great. Now for this coming up rotation, I do have a few new little buddies in this category. In the Sephora sale, I got the Glossier Stretch Concealer in the shade Light 1. I was kind of hoping that this would work under my eyes as well as all over my face, but I do find it to be a little bit deep for under the eyes, and I don't know, I think this is supposed to be like a neutral peachy shade, but I find it almost a little bit yellow. I'm not really sure. Color theory is not my thing. That is an ongoing journey for me. But in any case, I have been wearing this all across my face when I have been testing this out. And then for the under eyes, I got this Tower 28 concealer in the shade BU. Interestingly, this is a cool toned shade, and I think it is like a pretty dead on match for this NYX concealer serum in Light. I mean, maybe the Tower 28 is like a touch brighter, but the undertones are incredibly similar, and I always thought this was a neutral shade, but this is marked as a cool shade. And I also never thought my undertones were cool. But I did go into the store and somebody helped me select a shade, and they suggested this one, BU. So This has been working really well for like a slight brightening effect, and I find it incredibly similar to the NYX. It's got that self-setting quality. I don't find that it has been creasing in that area I mentioned, and I really love it. I've been really, really enjoying this. Which is great because I was kind of hoping it might be a dupe for this. Since I am boycotting L'Oreal and L'Oreal subsidiary companies, that includes NYX, so I won't be repurchasing this concealer even though I love it. So I'm really happy to find a comparable concealer, which for me will function as a dupe even though this is pricier than the NYX, but you know, not crazy. Yeah, I think for my Shop My Stash, I'm honestly just gonna go with the same ones because I do want to continue my progress on these and they're what I have been wanting to reach for. Anyway, I will save the new stuff for next time. Sorry, that's kind of a boring update. Oh, but I actually do think I'm gonna pull out this e.l.f. Halo Glow. I haven't been reaching for this over the last few months and I miss it. I feel like this is kind of a weird time of year for highlighter because I'm like, do I want to go for like soft, springy kinds of things like this strobe cream, or do I want to start getting into like more intense summery kinds of highlights? I think I'm gonna save some of the intense ones for the next Shop My Stash, which is gonna be more like high summer. I am gonna do the same thing again, and I'm gonna re-pull this MAC Strobe Cream because I wish I had used it more. I'm also gonna just keep ColourPop lunch money just out within reach because I am trying to finish it. What else though? This is new to me. This is the shade Mirrored Moonlight from Phytosurgeons. I've been wanting this for a very long time and I was super, super excited to try it. I have to say it's not my favorite kind of glow. I think if you like a light, subtle highlight and you also like a matte, powdery finish on your makeup, I think this will be great for you. Personally though, I almost find that this is a cream to powder, and I almost have the impression that it sort of like sets my skincare and my complexion makeup, which I don't actually like. I like to have that radiance from moisture. So when I put this on, sometimes it's actually making my base look less glowy. I just don't like that as much as the effect that I get from my other highlighters. So I'm not sure about this one. I kind of want to pull it out and play with it more. It's definitely not promising a blinding highlight. They are very clear that this is like a subtle glow. But again, that like mattifying quality it has throws me off a little personally, but I know that for a lot of people that would be a huge benefit because it does have that powdery finish while also being radiant. It's just that I'm going for something that's like really quite radiant. Not a blinding highlight per se, but something that's like looks really hydrated. Because for me with my dry skin, I lose moisture throughout the day. I don't gain oil. Anyway, I think long story short is that I am gonna pull this and try and play with it a little bit more, gather my thoughts about it. And I think that's all I'm going to pull out for highlighter right now. I'm tempted to go for this Wet n Wild. This is the shade I'm So Lit. It's a loose highlighter. I'm tempted to go for this. What I've been meaning to do is actually press some of this into a pan. I think I will be much more likely to reach for it because I really like the finish of this. I like the effect of it. It's much more blinding, but I just never reach for it because it is so messy to use. So what I think I'm gonna do in the next few months is press this into a pan, and once I do that, I will probably pull it out into my everyday makeup rotation. I'm not gonna set it aside right now, but I think I am gonna try and keep it sort of at the front of my mind during this next rotation. My bronzer collection has expanded quite a bit during the last 2 months, well, since my no buy ended. I'm not mad about it because I'm actually super into bronzer right now, and I'm like super into the bronzers that I got. And I think they really suit what I'm looking for more than the things I had. I did end up getting a second shade of the Phytosurgeons. Oh, well, this is Rosy Daybreak, which I'd already had. And then here is Golden Warmth. So this is shade 2, and I believe this is maybe shade, like it's the, okay, how do I explain this? They have, for every sort of like depth level, they have a yellow undertone and then a rosy undertone. So I have the rosy tone in the fairest set of bronzers, and then I have the golden yellow tone in the next depth up, if that makes any sense. So I was curious about what a deeper version of their bronzer would look like, and I was also curious about what a warmer version would look like, so I just ended up going for this one, Golden Warmth, instead of Golden Daybreak, the counterpart to Rosy Daybreak. Hope that makes sense. Anyway, I love this, and I find it's no more difficult to apply than Rosy Daybreak, even though it's supposedly a little bit deeper. It's just so sheer and so perfectly blended on first application. I find it so effortless. Let me tell you about the next bronzer I got. This is the Butter Bronzer, the famous Butter Bronzer in the shade Bronzer. And, you know, I'm about 5 years too late for the hype on this, but I really wanted to try it, especially because like so many people I still hear mention this and say, you know, that was something that really stood the test of time. And it's also often mentioned as a bronzer that's really light and easy to use if you are afraid of bronzer, essentially. And I've been really loving this. And even though it's a powder, I do wear it under cream blush. I've had no problem with it. I really, really love it. And I actually find that on my skin, it like is much more yellow than either of the Phytosurgeon's bronzers. Like you can see that in the pan. But I do find that when I put it on my skin, there's something peachy that comes out. I think sometimes it even looks like a blush shade that I would wear. It doesn't look at all that way in the pan, but sometimes it sort of imitates like a peachy kind of blush shade. And I think that I want to keep this out for my Shop My Stash. And, you know, actually I think I am going to go for Golden Warmth as my second option, even though they're both like warm toned. That's kind of par for the course for bronzer. So if I do want the rosy one, I'll just go into Rosy Daybreak as I always do. Blush. Again, we're bridging the gap here between spring and summer. So I still want some springy picks. I definitely want to start getting into some summer blushes. I'm not quite in the warm toasty mood required for this blush, which I am trying the pan, and I'm honestly so bored of this blush. I've barely reached for it, but I'm like already so bored of it. I also, just FYI, have a lot of blushes on the chopping block, and I can't quite remember which ones I might have mentioned in my last Shop My Stash, but I haven't technically gotten rid of any of them yet, even though some of them like mentally are no longer in my collection, and some of them are here in this shot and some are not. One thing that I know I want to pull out is this shade Baby from Merit. This is in their like satin lipstick formula, and it's described as a neutral pink, but at least on my skin tone, it goes very mauvey, like very cool toned, at least on my lips, on my face. And I really don't love it as a lip color, but I wanted to try it as a blush shade. In my mind, I think of it as being, I feel like I expect it to be similar on the cheeks to Condensate from Phytosurgeons, which is really interesting because this looks so much more cool toned in a swatch, but sheared out on my cheeks, it goes really neutral. And sometimes it almost looks peachy. It's a huge mystery to me. These Phytosurgeons blush shades are just magic. They're just so interesting. So I'm really curious what Baby will do on my cheeks. So I think I am going to pull that as like a blush for my rotation. Yeah, okay, spoiler alert, I did buy 3 more Phytosurgeons blushes when I made that same Phytosurgeons order. So I got the shades Condensate, Swelter, and Ember. I'd already had the shade Evaporate. And I think I do want to pull Condensate out as well because this feels like a nice like springtime kind of May shade. So I want to get the sort of last bit of springtime makeup in there. Oh, my cat's coming to visit. And then I also definitely want to pull out the shade Swelter. This is described as like a strawberry red, and I just feel like, you know, June is strawberry season. I'm just really inspired to use this right now, and I definitely want this in the rotation. So that's already 3. They're all kind of more cool pinky options, which is probably just as well because then it will encourage me to use Roosevelt anytime I want something warm. I do kind of want to pull in this e.l.f. Putty Blush in the shade Tahiti. It's not that it's necessarily filling a gap that the others don't fill. This is again kind of just like a neutral pink. I haven't used this in ages. I was finding in the winter that my skin was too dry for this formula, which is a cream to powder, but I historically have enjoyed this in the summertime. So I'm gonna pull this out as well just to get some use on it right now and start getting excited about it for this summer. So it's kind of a disaster to pull out my lip collection right now because there's so many of them and it's so disorganized. So I'm just gonna go through this like one by one. I did want to just start by mentioning a couple of new lip things that I picked up. This is the Merit Matte lipstick in the shade Vermilion. I was pretty excited about this. I don't know, I've just gotten it into my head recently that like I want a signature red. I might do a video like comparing some of my red lipsticks or comparing some of my lip products in general, but I find this to be like so light. Like the color is so light in value and it's so bold. It's not that it's got white in it, it's just, I don't know. I decided not to return it, even though I thought about it. I have no doubt that I could place this with somebody who would get use out of it if I end up decluttering it. But for now, I decided I wanted to continue playing with it. So I might like just pull this out. This is a good time of year for it, I think. I'm gonna see if I can wear it like maybe even just once. See if I find a way that I enjoy the way it looks. I'm gonna keep this Dusty Rose gloss pulled that I am panning. This one is also new to me from Sephora. This is the Tower 28 lip gloss in the shade Spicy. And it's, again, another like warm red. Again, I just got it into my head that I wanted some sort of like strawberry red gloss for the summer. And this is really a good shade in that it doesn't go hot pink on me. That's what reds tend to do, and so I wanted like that sort of cherry lip color, but I was worried that with like a sheer formula it would just automatically look hot pink. And I'm happy with how this looks actually. It does look like a sheer warm red. It's a bit intense for me as a gloss. I've never used a gloss this intense, but I'm liking it so far. And I think that this would go really well with that strawberry red blush shade I mentioned, and just sort of like be a fun sort of like June, early summer kind of color. So I'm definitely pulling that out. I also just kind of want to get more use on the shade Dune from Kaleidos. I don't know, I've just been drawn to this lately. I don't even know how to describe this shade. I think it like comes out slightly different every time because these Kaleidos shades, it really depends on how sheer you put them. They're very, very versatile. So one additional application will like completely change the depth and the intensity of the color. So you can see here it looks like almost plummy. I think like sheared out it looks more like a brick kind of nude. So I don't know, I like this color a lot. I find it, yeah, quite versatile, quite flattering. I'm intrigued. I swatched that Essence lip gloss just for consistency. And then I'll probably just keep around Adobe from Kaleidos, just keep that kind of within reach. But I'm not gonna go crazy on lips this rotation. I feel like I keep overdoing that category in these shot mustaches and then I get a little overwhelmed. So there's that peachy shade from Kaleidos. All right, little cat, time to move along. Time This is my cat, Judy. All right, I know it smells interesting. So I also got this other Merit lipstick. This is one of their satin signature lipsticks, and this is in the shade Tiger. And I feel like I keep having bad luck with the Merit lipsticks and like choosing the wrong shades, even though in theory I like the formulas so far. But this one, I will say, is a real hit for me. I've been wearing this all the time. It's a perfect like brick shade for when I want to wear a red, but I want it to be unfussy. I want it to be natural, flattering, nude. I've been carrying this around in my purse and just like reapplying without a mirror. I absolutely love this one. So this is a success from the Merit lipsticks for me, but I will not be pulling this for my Shop My Stash just because I've been using this a lot in the last few weeks. I have one other thing to share with you before we just arrange all these products in my basket, and that's this LA Girl glitter topper in the shade Hollow Glam. I don't usually pull out my like single potted eyeshadows for these videos, but I have a bright blue shade in my deck of panning right now, and it's kind of a goal, an overarching goal for me this summer to like wear a lot of blue eyeshadow. This is a really fun topper for any blue eyeshadow looks. It's an iridescent blue that flips bright purple. I just want to have it on hand so I don't forget to take advantage of that. And per usual, I'm going to be keeping these out on my vanity, these complexion products, but I'm not going to be able to fit them into these little baskets. So thank you so much for joining me for this Shop My Stash. I'm really excited to get back into wearing more makeup than I had been when I was busy with this move. Not that I'm not still busy unpacking, but at least I have a little curated collection that I can put on my vanity and reach into every day. If you liked this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe if you want to do that. I hope to see you back here for future videos. Bye!